In the beginning, there was...
The Bitchspot Report. Welcome to the Bitchspot Report, the conservative atheist podcast that's not afraid to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. Every week, your hosts, Cephas and Mike, will take on the latest religious and political news and examine the world around us from a distinctly conservative and skeptical perspective. Join us now for this episode of the Bitchspot Report. And here we go again with episode 62 of the Bitchspot Report Podcast, the only conservative atheist podcast around. This week, we look at Christian persecution as a lifestyle, creationists and their exploding heads, reverse sexism and why it's absurd, and even more court-ordered records on pedophile priests and why the Catholics won't ever stop screwing children. Oh yeah, we actually addressed the common claim that atheists won't criticize Muslims. Fuck Islam. And screw Muhammad right up his pedophile ass. So, how's it going this week?
It's going pretty good.
Let me guess. It could be going better.
It could be going better. Oh man, I have not been getting any sleep, but I've been sleeping. I don't know. It's really weird. But, plus now, hopefully the show will come together. I'm having a few more technical issues as usual, so.
Yeah, we need to do something about that, but I don't know how to fix it.
I don't know. I can't afford to buy Holiday in a new Wi-Fi system. Or get him a real one.
Yeah, I don't know. Well, you do what you do, and we make it work as best we can. Yeah. I just started a debate with somebody over objective morality on a forum, and it amazes me how some people are just completely blinded by their own beliefs. I mean, this guy starts off and he correctly identifies what objective means, and a lot of theists don't have a goddamn clue what the hell it means, but, you know, he says, okay, it requires that morality must be beyond the realm of the human brain. It can't be affected by our beliefs, our egos, our emotions, our wishes and dreams and fantasies and all that stuff. It's got to exist out in the real world entirely without any input from people. That's what objective really means. And then he turns around and goes, and therefore, the source of morality has to be God. What the fuck? No, God is something that people made up as a sounding board for humans to bounce their emotions off of. There's no evidence for any God. You know, this guy wants to say, oh, well, there's no such thing as objective morality, except I have objective morality.
Yeah.
What the fuck is wrong with these people?
One thing that might help these people, if they got a tape recorder and recorded what they just said, or actually read what they just wrote, and maybe they'll realize, I just said something stupid. You know, it's like, once it's out there, I don't have to deal with the consequences. My God says I'm right. So, I could say all the stupid shit I want. You know, I could just fall back on my book. You know, it's like, if they were to listen to themselves talk, if they were to actually read what they just wrote, or, you know, watch the video they just made, that might be a step, at least one step closer to, you know, that these people realize how ridiculous they sound.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I had to sit down and describe this really, really, really slow for this guy. You know, and it's not just theists that do this. There's a lot of atheists who think that there's such a thing as objective morality. But, I mean, let's be really honest, okay? 1,000 years ago, we had a bunch of people who grew up and were indoctrinated into whatever culture and society they happened to be a part of, and they believed that whatever their society thought was the absolute truth. Today, we have people like this guy who grew up and was indoctrinated into his society, that he starts to think that everything they believe is the absolute truth, and he looks back at the people from 1,000 years ago and says, well, they were just immoral. Well, what happens in another 1,000 years when you have people who grow up and are indoctrinated into this other society that differs from what people believe today, and they look back and go, yep, everybody that's alive today, they were a bunch of fucking immoral monsters. And these people don't understand that that's how this works.
Yeah, like one of my, I guess you would call it the fingernail on the blackboard moments, has always been, it's usually when they say, well, this is the way we've done it. Or they'll go, well, in the past, this happened, you know. Wait a minute, this is you're talking about the past. This is today. In the United States, I mean, slavery was legal. 1865, it was abolished. In that time frame. And you can't own slaves in the United States anymore. But, there's always that, this is something that we did, this is part of the culture. No, that was outlawed years ago. Don't you understand that this is the way things were a long time ago? Forget about the past. Every day, even in my job, there's people says, well, we've always done it this way, or this is the way I've always done it. There's some key questions I'll ask, and it really comes down to is why? Why have you done it that way? What is the reason? Is there any kind of code? Is there a specific requirement? But usually it's just the way I've always done it. We've always done it this way. Well, let go. It's not true in all cases. I mean, why we latch on to this idea. Some of the stuff was okay 100 years ago. I mean, there were thousands, 2000, whatever. It was okay back then. It should be okay now. And no, that's not true. It's just, we're dealing with different mindsets, different, social structure bases and stuff like that. And today it's a whole different thing. We've abandoned slavery. I don't even know where to go with this after this, because it's like, again, they're holding on to these old ideas. The Bible says this, and they want to hold on to it where it's irrelevant in this day and age.
Well, yeah, but I mean, the exact opposite is also true, and this comes a lot from the atheists, where they will say, we are against slavery today, therefore slavery was always considered wrong. Throughout all of human history, every single person who ever owned a slave, they knew that they were morally wrong to hold these slaves. No, they didn't. 200 years ago, slavery was just fine as far as the slave owners in the United States. They thought it was completely morally acceptable. In fact, their religious beliefs said that yes, blacks were inferior to whites. Well, times change, but that doesn't mean that you can go around and retroactively go, hey, I'm just going to change the entire moral structure of every culture that's ever existed on the planet Earth because this is what I think today. And there's a lot of people out there who think that's a fucking good thing to do, and it's insane. It's like, what the fuck are you smoking? In another 200 years when somebody says, hey, we're going to have slaves again. And guess what? All those people who lived in 2014, they were just fucking completely wrong. And they all knew that they were wrong about slavery. Yeah, it doesn't work that way. Sorry. Morals change over time. History proves that. Look at the goddamn Bible. I mean, if you just read the damn Bible, and morals change dramatically over the course of the Bible's history. But they don't want to believe that. They want to think, well, yeah, no, everybody in the Bible always believed the crap that Jesus said. No, they didn't. What are you fucking smoking?
Yeah. I see it even today with minor stuff, that people, they'll latch onto this old stuff. And on the one hand, I loved how this one engineer handled this one situation. This was a period of time on the job where I was like getting really frustrated with the place I was working at. I mean, it was a good place to work, but there were changes coming. New people were coming in with these unrealistic expectations. Let's put it that way. And, this guy kept saying, yeah, there's a code. It's a standard. Black is positive, white is negative in DC circuits. And I kept trying to explain to this guy, yeah, that may be true, but in this particular place, in this particular unit, everything's backwards. But for some reason, this other guy, the engineer, kept telling this guy, do it to standard, do it to the correct. Well, it comes back, he changed everything I did, just totally butchered everything I did. And, so the project manager asked who authorized the change. We normally do it, the opposite of what you're showing here. And this guy says, well, it's a standard. It's a standard. Black is positive, white is negative. And the guy asked him, what standard is that? I mean, you got a book, is there a code book or something? And the guy didn't have an answer. And I started giggling inside because I knew that was the reality. There is no color code for, DC instrumentation. There's no color codes. It's just this guy, these two guys who eventually I think pushed me out. They were set in their ways. They always thought this is the way you do things, and they couldn't think beyond that. They couldn't understand the client has their standards, their preferred methods. It may not match up with anything you've done before. I mean, I've been in so many places. There's so many different standards and stuff that, it's like, show me a standard I run with it. I'm not even going to sit there, try to argue color codes and, standard arguing cable types and what you should and shouldn't have. It's like, if this is what you're using, let me know. I'll keep going, type of thing. But there's those who just can't let go. They don't want to let go. And then, of course, again, that idea about, well, this is the way we've always done it. This place, after I left, they had been going through a lot of changes. So they were putting in new computers, DCS systems. So they were in a position to change stuff. So I'm imagining the argument was, well, we've been always wiring it this way. Let's keep that same standard. It's like, well, you got an opportunity to change and get the plant all on one color code, because that was the thing. You go from unit to unit, they had different color codes. So this would have been an opportunity for them to clean their act up a little bit. But I would bet you they didn't do it or didn't want to do it because it meant extra work or whatever. But,
it meant communicating between everybody, and that never works in corporate America.
Yeah, that's probably it too. Yeah. So.
Yeah. Well, I don't know what's going to happen with this guy. I've just had one round with him, but we'll have to see. It's just sad that you have to sit down with these people and explain things really, really, really slowly and in great detail because they're just completely blind to the blatant reality right in front of their eyes. Right. It's like, you don't think about this. You react. You don't think. And that's such a problem today.
Even for us that like to think, not necessarily on the same vein, but I come across this article. And I'm still trying to figure it out. I mean, honestly, I can't figure out what this guy's talking about. I was trying to for my last podcast for my conspiracy show, I wanted to look into conspiracy fact, conspiracy theory. And there just happened to be an article, conspiracy fact, conspiracy theory, so I started reading it. And I start reading, and it's like, well, what's this guy talking about? He's not talking about anything, but it's really, to me, it was like, when I first read it was like a lot of gibberish. I mean, it was just like the guy was putting words on a piece of paper and kind of structuring them as sentences. That's all I saw in this thing. And I kept going back over and over. And it's like, you take two nouns, smash them together and call it something. And, I go, okay, well, maybe I can find out what he's talking about by looking up these words. And I go to Google and nothing comes up.
Yeah.
I mean, I'll find the one word, I'll find the other word, but I might get an article, but they're not together. Transcendental denialism, or stuff like that. It's like he was mashing words together and nothing was making sense. And I kept going over and over, and I went and looked at other articles, and again, it's kind of this gibberish. The whole blog is a pile of gibberish, and he's trying to do something, talking about conspiracies, this Fabian conspiracy. And that's not something I've heard about, a Fabian conspiracy, but haven't dug into it. So I go, hey, it's an opportunity to learn about the Fabian conspiracy. And again, nothing related to Fabian conspiracy in these articles. It seems to be this guy talking about, perception and, it's hard to even say. And I'm like, even on top of it, I mean, he's got pages upon pages. I mean, one article, I swear, cause the one that attracted me, he's got in 4 parts, and there's gotta be 2,000, maybe 5,000 words in these articles that says nothing. And the best I can figure is this guy is, has something to do with autism that this guy's got. And, I don't know what's going on there. If that's just him thinking that he's writing something intelligent. Apparently his brother was a artist who, was one of these, I don't know if we're going to call him kind of crazy artists. He did a, exhibition in Spain, like Madrid, where he nailed himself to a cross. And I'm like, okay, this guy is not, and I don't want to say, well, this is a family of mental cases, but it's like, I've actually decided I'm going to give up because I can't, like I said, I can't make heads or tails. He's talking about all this. I see parts that I do understand about, because it's something I've been studying about how the brain operates and how we process information. And, because it is, with the conspiracy world and the religious world, it's basically I think why we hang on to religion or how we accept religion, because it's just how our biases, how our brain functions and tries to resolve issues from the information it's taking in. I mean, I get that part, and that seems to be part of what he's going for, but then he goes off on these weird tangents.
Yeah.
So just trying to make sense of it is, of his article, but I mean, I got a little bit of information. I got new leads to follow on that, but this article is crap. I'm not going to give the guy's name or give links because I don't want to, especially the comments, and even the comments, people were getting it. I'm like, I'm almost tempted to say this is a bot writing, like putting words, just mashing words together to create articles, but there's these comments. Oh yeah, that's exactly what I'm thinking. That's the way I believe the world works. I'm like, how do you get that? And I'm not going to jump in and say, how do you get that from this? How do you get anything from this article? I don't understand it.
Oh, come on. It's all in code. That's why you can't understand it. You can't, see? And if he won't write about his conspiracy, you can't debunk his conspiracy. Therefore, he's doing it to protect the conspiracy.
That's perfectly clear.
Yeah, that makes much more sense, right?
Yeah.
Or they could just be crazy like all the other conspiracy theorists. That kind of explains it too.
Right.
All right. Well, we should probably do some news.
Let's do some news.
And now the news.
Ladies and gentlemen, today we're going to answer the age-old question. Which came first, the chicken or the egg?
One of the hardest things for a father is when it comes time to send his little girl off to college.
Biology? Did you get Cayman?
Complex life forms evolved from simpler life forms.
Hey, what did you think about what Professor Cayman was just saying?
She's one of the cutest freshmen we've seen.
Just calling to get your topic for the October debate.
I really like all of my instructors, especially my biology teacher, Professor Cayman. He's a riot.
The guy's an evolutionist, and there's nothing in the whole course description about biblical creation as even a plausible alternative.
All our public schools and universities teach evolution as the answer to the origins of life.
Don't you think Professor Cayman has some good concepts? He could be right.
Have you ever seen that thing that Cayman does where he shows how we all came from apes? Life comes from life. It doesn't come from non-life.
Evolution versus creationism. What do you say?
Professor Cayman, my dad can't debate you.
If I were you, I'd get out of it. I've never done anything like this before.
I wasn't going to teach evolutionary lies from those textbooks. I'm out of the game.
You debating Professor Cayman is not going to solve anything.
This guy stands against everything that we believe in.
What are you doing? What did you tell her?
I'm not interested. Do you know how embarrassing this is going to be for me?
Welcome everyone to our debate tonight.
Wasn't the Bible written by man?
Yes, it was.
Then how does that make it the Word of God? And you do believe in your viewpoint, don't you?
Fundamentalist Christians are convinced that anyone who disagrees with them or doesn't let their faith run roughshod over the rights of the non-religious Americans must be attacking Christianity. They've released a pile of movies lately, such as God Is Not Dead, Persecuted, and now this film, A Matter of Faith, to whine about how hard the majority of religion in America has it. Yes, that is as dumb as it sounds. Why do they keep putting these movies out that says it's so hard and so horrible that we, who make up the majority of Americans, are not able to run over everybody else and fuck everybody else over?
Little penis?
I guess. I don't know.
That's the only thing I can think of. I mean, Mike McElroy saw one of these films, to comment it on the Reverend Skeptics. And, they've got big names in these movies, but the storylines are so bad. I mean, it was like a combination of, that they're persecuted, that this minority is, putting them down, but they're also like trying to attack. It's like a big straw man. It's a movie about a straw man, and they're knocking down where they got the college, like I forget the one that McElroy saw, but, Kevin Sorbo,
that's God Is Not Dead. Yeah.
God Is Not Dead. Yeah. I guess he was like a professor that one of his students convinced him that he was wrong. That's basically the idea. And they did it through this, where the kid used a straw man argument every time to attack Sorbo's, belief. I forget what class was he was teaching, and of course Sorbo turns to God.
And then dies in the end.
Yeah. But, I don't know. But it was like, when he was talking about the movie, it's like, it's like this, that these people, first of all, they've stereotyped scientists and intelligent people, the people that are opposed to what they're talking about. It's that we're, materialistic. We live in a materialistic world. We don't believe in relative world or whatever the thing is. And that we're just being misguided by our past experiences and our, either through our professors in college. And it's usually it's education. It's really just an attack on education. Anything you learn, when you learn about evolution and you learn about the founding fathers, it's all propaganda. It's not true. It's when you learn about the origins of religion. Again, it's not true. It's professors, blinding you to the true word of God. And it's like a really bad arguments. Straw man arguments, arguments from authority type arguments, or I don't understand why the universe works, so it must be God doing, gods of the gap type arguments and so on. And why they're doing it, I have no idea. These are really badly written, really bad stereotypes in the movies. The only redeeming quality seems to be that they get big names to play in the movies. I don't know what,
I'm sorry. I would not consider Kevin Sorbo to be a big name anymore.
True, but he is a name. Yeah.
He's a name who was in a show once, and he's not anymore, and he hasn't been in anything for a decade. Yeah, he's not really a big name, sorry.
Right. But it's still a name that people can, like Kate Mulgrew, they all know her from from the Star Trek.
Yeah, and they lied to her to get her to do it.
Yeah. But, she did get a script to read. Get some names, Kirk Cameron.
But he's a dick.
True, but I wouldn't be surprised that if it wasn't Kirk Cameron, I bet you Comfort would never even deal with it. It wouldn't even have looked at him. Maybe lovingly, but
yeah, well, you never know.
Yeah.
Okay, well, anyway, Reasonable Doubts did a full episode on that God Is Not Dead movie, and they go into a lot of detail about the whole thing. And so I've thrown that in the show notes so people can go listen to that if they want. It's very, very interesting. But to be really honest, I don't think there's a fallacy that these people don't use on a regular basis and are not on speaking terms with. Because holy shit, these people, everything they throw at the screen is a fallacy. That's all they do. It's just straw men and, the argument from ignorance and all the rest of this nonsense. And the whole point behind God Is Not Dead was this Christian student was supposed to be trying to prove his atheist professor, his ridiculous atheist professor, wrong, and he never does. He never presents any evidence. He just makes a bunch of apologetic arguments that anybody with half a fucking brain could walk right through and just say, this is stupid. And Kevin Sorbo's character just kind of goes, oh, well, I don't know how to respond to that. Well, of course not, because you don't have a fucking clue.
Bad writers. Your writers fucked up.
Yeah. It's just really, really ridiculous. And I think it's really funny that a lot of fundamentalists are coming to realize that a college education is the fastest way to deconvert the young. Ken Ham in his book Already Gone, he warns parents that churches and schools that don't teach the Bible as literal word of God have already led children astray. Like that's a bad thing. Right. These people are morons.
Yeah, and they want to make everyone that follows them morons. If you have knowledge, you question. If you don't have knowledge, you follow. That's really what it is. And
if you don't have knowledge, you just make some shit up.
Yeah, you make shit up and people will follow you. Really, if you give a person a good story, you'll get people to follow you. If I can say, yeah, follow me, everything will be good. You'll make riches. Granted, you gotta go to heaven first. Everything is going to be great. And, if you could sell that story, you could say, then now here, drink this Kool-Aid and, we'll get to heaven quicker. Or, there's, whatever, the 17 virgins in heaven, whatever the promise is. And you can make these promises because people don't question it. And, if you could be authoritative enough, giving, these guys credit, they speak authoritatively. They are convicted. They're convinced their book is right and that they're right and they're willing to defend that. I give them credit for that, but, they're wrong, but, they have that conviction and people follows that. they'll look at Ken Ham and says, well, yeah, he makes sense. Well,
no, he doesn't.
But no, he doesn't. But
yeah, the problem is, I don't care how much conviction you have. If you're wrong, you're wrong. I don't care how convicted you are, you're wrong.
Right.
You know, and these people desperately want creationism taught in the schools as an equal alternative to evolution, but it just isn't. You know, it's like going, I want the demon theory of a disease taught along germs and, bacteria. Well, no, that doesn't work because demons don't exist and you people are just fucking stupid.
Right. Like I said, you get up Ken Ham, Ray Comfort, the Hovens, the Joyce Myers, the Olsteins, the Pat Robertsons, and, they speak to their people. They make the promises. They, say, hey, send me the money. You're going to be guaranteed a place in heaven. All this wonderful stuff that in reality doesn't exist, but, that's how they make their money. That's how they can keep the pews full. The money keeps rolling in, and they'll defend the lie to the bitter end. And people will jump in and say, hallelujah, you're right. And, but if you start educating people, getting them into colleges, you're kind of an idiot not to at least try to get into college or try to get an education, because that's what's going to get you a better job. You're going to get a better position. You're not, if you don't go to college, or you go to a college that doesn't teach reality, you're not going to make it in the real world. You're not going to make a better paycheck and have a better life. And you're going to be dependent upon, your religion to carry you through. Religion is a crutch, type of thing. So.
Yeah, but we're getting these really small groups of uneducated fundamentalists screaming and crying about the failures of their belief in the real world and spinning it wildly so it looks like it's not creationism that's failing, but it's just some kind of weird conspiracy theory by scientists to keep the obvious truth of their beliefs under wraps. That's what they're teaching. They're not teaching that, well, our beliefs are just not supportable by any evidence. They're going, no, everybody's trying to keep the truth from you. And it's a conspiracy theory. That's exactly what this is. And it's so laughable that these fucks like Ken Ham and Ray Comfort and all these other morons just keep spinning this out, writing books going, oh, well, we're really right, but they're just hiding the truth from you. No, they're not. You guys are just wrong.
Exactly. I can't say it any better.
Yeah. Well, we're actually going to continue with that in a minute. So why don't you do your first story?
Yes. Neil deGrasse Tyson said Earth is 4.5 billion years old on TV. Creationists' heads explode. It did not take long for the creationists to take issue with Neil deGrasse Tyson's and the latest episode of Cosmos on Fox. Why do you ask? Well, it's because Tyson dared to declare the age of the Earth to be 4.5 billion years old. Answers in Genesis, our buddy Ken Ham, the organization run by younger creationists. Ken Ham, known for his recent debate against Bill Nye on the topic of evolution, has now taken issue with episode 7 of Cosmos, as the show taught us just how scientist Claire Patterson discovered the true age of this very planet. AIG takes issue because early on, Tyson declared the true age of the Earth could not be found without reliable historical record. The Bible was once believed to be this historical record, but as Tyson explains, it is no longer. We can now look to the rocks themselves to find our answer. And apparently this is what made Ken Ham freak out.
Yeah, but, I really love how in Cosmos, Tyson jabs the religious who can't deal with the reality of science all the time. I can't think of an episode where he hasn't said something that was aimed at the religious.
Oh, yeah.
And the creationists and the religious zealots complain that everything he says skewers their religious beliefs. Well, dude, maybe it's because your religious beliefs are fucking stupid.
Listen to the guy, and he's explaining to you why you're fucked up.
Yeah, but they don't want to hear that they're fucked up. That's the problem. It's like we talked about in the previous story. Answers in Genesis is unable to deal with the actual data. Therefore, they declare that there's this wild conspiracy by scientists to prove creationism wrong. No, creationism is wrong. That's the problem.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know what else to say, because it's listening to Ken Ham. I mean, he makes the same argument over and over again, and it's always being torn down. He makes the true statement that, science, have to make observations. That's true. The problem is, you can't observe the origin of the universe or the origin of the Earth. So he says,
but you weren't there.
Because you weren't there. Of course, you can use the same argument. Well, Ken Ham wasn't there. So where was your book? But anyhow, and what I like about, what Cosmos did was say, well, we have to look elsewhere for the evidence of how old the earth is. I mean, we can't just say we didn't see it. We don't have a time machine. We don't, nobody lives the 4.6 billion years. So there was no one there at the beginning. You do experiments, you examine, you understand how the planet came together. You look at the rocks, you look at how the rocks were stratified, you look at the layers, how the chemical reactions, you look at all this stuff and you can say with fairly reasonable, I don't want to use guess but you can make a reasonable assumption that the earth is 4.5 billion years because we've got these trains of evidence, and it's not one train of evidence. I mean, it's not just the stratification or the Grand Canyon being, we could count these layers and all this stuff. You've got the minerals in rocks and, all the rock structures, we could do calculations on how much gravity would it take to pull this material together and all that kind of stuff. And you can run all these different, lines of evidence because we know scientifically for this to happen, this has to happen before this happens. We can get a chain of evidence and we can say with reasonable certainty, and that's what we came up with. We come up with 4.5 billion years. And, Ken Ham, his only argument is it's in the Bible, I mean, that's really what the cusp of all this is that Ken Ham's book, where did it come from? Who wrote it? Is it really an inspired word of God? Ken Ham, you weren't there when God told Moses to write down the 10 Commandments and write down his book, and you weren't there when God inspired the book of Genesis. Where's your proof?
Yeah, well, he has done.
Where's your line of evidence to support that book is correct? That would be my open argument to Ken Ham is, you believe the Genesis is correct. Where is your evidence to say that the book of Genesis is correct without using God as the final say? Even though God inspired that book, someone had to write it down. Who did he inspire to write that book? How did that person put those words together? Did he put the words together? Did she put those words together? Who did this? And, he can't do it. He can't prove that book was inspired by God because he doesn't know who wrote it.
Well, of course not, because he, like all theists, does it all ass backwards. I mean, science looks at the evidence and follows where it leads. Religion starts with a conclusion, and then they ignore everything that doesn't lead to that conclusion. And that's why Ken Ham fails so often, because he can't actually prove that his conclusion is valid.
Right. In my last podcast, I did the exact same thing to create my conspiracy theory. I started with an end conclusion, and then I fitted data to that conclusion. And that's what all these guys do. They work backwards. They don't work forwards. How do I get to the book of Genesis? How can I start from today to get to the book of Genesis? Can I get there in 6,000 years or whatever the number, years ago? Who put pen to paper? Where's that original document? Can you find that document? Can you associate it with other evidence at the time? It can't be done.
Well, of course not.
He can't do it because it doesn't exist. But if he believes it, he should be able to start from today, day one, and figure out where that book came from.
Yeah, but he doesn't care. That's the problem. He's not interested in validating his beliefs. He doesn't care. He believes because it feels good, and therefore, as far as he's concerned, it must be true.
Yeah. Well, he believes it just because it's the word of God, and you don't question it, and that's what makes him feel good. Because he doesn't have to think. Well,
remember, absolutely nothing will ever change his mind, because he's not interested in whether he's believing in truth.
Right.
Well, I mean, I will admit, to give a little bit of, I don't want to say validity necessarily, but I'm not necessarily all that happy with some of the language that Tyson uses in Cosmos. I think a lot of the things that he says can be easily twisted by the creationists into something that can look similar to faith. And that's why I'm always very, very careful about what I say. I think first about how my words can be misused and make sure that I don't say things that can be easily twisted and used against me. And Tyson uses a lot of flowery language in Cosmos, and I think that's a problem. All right. I know he's trying to go for a very general audience, but he's saying things that are all cute and pretty and flowery and emotional. And that gets in the way. That opens the door for people like Ham to say, aha, see, he's using emotional language and it's really, he has faith in science and all this other shit. I think that's a problem. I really do.
Yeah, but then that's a toughie because, I mean, I'd like to think I'm fairly passionate over science. And if I were to do a show, if I was in Tyson's shoes, I probably would be putting a show just the way he's doing it perfect. You have to have a passion for science. I mean, it's not raw numbers and head buried in a microscope or books or something like that. There's a lot, it's discovery. It is learning the world and, using words, like exploration and discovery and, the wonderment of the universe, excitement, and bringing that kind, to try to inspire, people to say, you do embrace a little, you gotta, I guess when you're first getting into it, you kind of have to have faith. But once you realize I don't need faith to support my science, maybe that's it. I mean, he's trying to approach the younger audience. I mean, trying to get the younger audience excited about science because, to be honest, this country needs to rebuild our scientific community. We need more scientists, or at least people scientifically minded, or we're going to be, we're going to become a third world nation pretty quick.
Yeah.
But I think this, for the adults, I think that may become, I think it's problematic because then they start, especially when you're dealing with the religious, they might, they'll start saying, well, he's behaving a lot like how we behave. He's got faith in science, like I have faith in God. So, they can make that argument, but for kids, they haven't made that connection yet. And they may not even realize, that's what's going on. To convince an adult that the world is 4.6 billion years old when they think it's only 6,000 years old, that's a tough sell. You need more behind it, more argument, more evidence to possibly convince that person versus, a 8, 9, 10, 11-year-old who's just discovering, oh, there's really this out there. There's more than just my backyard and, the trees in my backyard. I mean, there's a whole world out there that I can be exploring. That'd be my take on it. You can get away with a little bit more when you're dealing with younger and early, trying to hook them, getting that hook to get them interested in science versus the adult who's already so set in his ways. It's going to take a lot more to, pry them out of their beliefs.
Yeah, well, I'm not really all that comfortable with using the same tactics and methods that religion uses to indoctrinate people into science, where you sit around and go, oh, well, it's so wonderful, it makes you feel good, and all this other crap that goes on. Science is about reality. Science is about the numbers. It's about looking through that microscope. It's about making discoveries. It's not necessarily about the passion and the emotion and all the things that religion uses. And I got a problem, I'm sorry, where he's really pushing the emotion and the passion and the feeling, which he may be feeling. I'm fine with that. But, when you're in a war between reality and magic thinking and you start using all the same methods that magic thinking has been using, I'd much rather him just sit down and say, here's the facts. This is what is real. And leave the magic thinking and the emotion and the passion for something else, because I don't think it really belongs.
I think I understand your point. I'm not so much worried about the older, the more set in their ways. I'm more worried about the young kid this may be his discovery of a world that he may be interested in being involved with. I don't know. I think I'm going to say you're right. It's just that I think you're right when it comes to older people, but I think there does need to be some, more emotion when you're dealing with younger and showing that that you could be passionate about science. Be passionate about science as you are religion, because it is, something you do, I don't want to use faith, but it's, it's something that you've embraced. You've embraced the idea that we live in a real world, not a fantasy world of religion. We live in a real world.
Except the adults are the ones that are using that tactic against Tyson. It's not the kids that, granted, Cosmos is intended for a young audience. Sagan's Cosmos was, this one is. But by going at that same thing, he's just giving these creationist fucks more ammunition to use against him. So where do you go? How do you win this one? You aim it at the kids and you become emotional, and then the adults turn around and punch you in the face with all the stuff that you've just handed them.
Right. But then again, are the kids paying attention to the adults that are slamming him, or
Oh, I don't think anybody's paying any damn attention to the creationists. Right. I'm just saying that handing them that ammunition, handing Ken Ham all this stuff, that he's going to turn around and write books and, tell everybody, see, he's just a fucking fundamentalist scientist. Yeah, that's a problem too. And there may not be a solution to it. I understand that, but it's still something that kind of pisses me off.
Yeah, but they'll always try to find some. I mean, every show, every time that Cosmos has come on, there's been a beef about it. It's always going to be there. These people just, the Ken Hams, the Comforts, they seem like every time they open their mouth, they sound much more stupider. Maybe that's the good thing about having them attack, because it's like, with the show, I mean, it's dealing with science. You're not getting bad science watching this show. And if these guys are attacking it, it's just showing how little they know about science. Attacking Tyson as being emotional and faith-driven, whatever, maybe makes them look just as bad. So maybe it's a wash. It's like any debate. You might sway some people, you might not, and it's, there's some people that will switch sides. Okay. But there'll be others that'll switch to the other, and it ends up being a wash. So, I mean, it is, for us, every time Ken Ham opens his mouth, along with Pat Robertson and all them, stupid stuff comes out. And then there's guys like us who can, point it out that how stupid they are.
Oh, they don't care how stupid they are. That's the problem.
Well, they don't realize how stupid they are, because
they're proud to be stupid.
Yeah.
All right. Well, we should probably go ahead and move on.
So a vote this afternoon. Chatham University's Board of Trustees has okayed to allow their programs, undergrad programs, that is, to go co-ed for the first time in their history, which goes back 145 years. There's already been some co-ed in the graduate programs. When this was announced and there were hearings about this, there was a hue and cry from not just some of the current students, but former students and alum as well, including Sarah Gray, who talked with us several months ago about this and quite hot under the collar at the time. She joins us again on the 84 Lumber Newsline. And Sarah, I want to welcome you back. First of all, are you as angry now, or how would you characterize your feelings with the news today?
Thank you for having me. I'd characterize those feelings more as grief at this point. We've been all experiencing the anger for quite a while now, as we've attempted to communicate with the college to help find a solution, and repeatedly been ignored or dismissed. And at this point, it's really about grieving for our college, which no longer exists.
I mean, that's a rather extreme way of looking at it, as some people might suggest. They said, no, the university is going to go on. What do you mean that it doesn't exist?
Well, the university is going to go on, but Chatham College for Women is what I consider my college, and that is going to be no more, unfortunately. And what I loved about attending Chatham, not only was I supported as a woman in that single-sex environment with just incredible amounts of support and self-confidence, but I also had a fantastic liberal arts education. And part of the press release that I think has gotten a little less press is that Chatham is also moving away from the liberal arts in its academic reorganization, as well as going co-ed.
In a rare turn of fate, the 145-year-old Chatham University in Pennsylvania has voted to start allowing men to enroll at a previously all-female school. Now you'd think that, in the guise of gender equality, this would be a good thing, but no. The women are screaming that they have a right to deny men enrollment. These are the exact same women who would be out protesting at all male colleges, screaming gender discrimination. I guess what's good for the goose is not necessarily good for the gander. Where do these people come from?
I don't know. This story, it bugs me. It's that I'm being oppressed, that I'm the victim. oh God, how would I even want to talk about this? Because it is hypocritical. Women want in on, when the big thing was getting women into men's sports, the high schools letting girls play football. And of course that's, always been the big story. Little Susie wants to play, high school football. And either she's denied or the team embraces it, so you get these, these little stories. And, of course, when a, team owner says a few things racist, he gets kicked. He didn't even get kicked off his team. He was literally denied, access to his team. When you're dealing with an issue like, racism, sexism, gay rights, all that stuff, and they get their victories, sometimes there's failures, but it's part of the mission, gaining equality, it's all about equality. But then when you get someone who, well, heck, I'm a guy, I'd like to go to this school. Granted, it's all women and I can get the education I want. Oh, no, you can't do that. That's against the rules, whether it's private or public, you limit the rules of that business that whatever says, well, we don't serve certain people, or we don't allow Jews to join our golf or our country club, whatever, or we don't allow blacks in our country club, whatever it is. And when they decide, maybe it's time we start allowing Jews in our club or blacks in our club, it's a victory. I mean, it's reverse discrimination. And why is this any different than women getting into an all-male school or turning a male school into co-ed or whatever they do? Why is this any different? Guys can now go to this school. Guys want to go to this school. Why is it different? And why is this a big deal? And I don't know if these are the same people who would protest, a school that has discriminated against women going to that school. I don't know. I mean, it's just such a mystery to me why this has to be different than any other, where there's a gender barrier or there's a racial barrier or a ethnic barrier or a religious barrier to accessing that school. Why is one different than the other? I do not understand this. And this is where, I think where my problem, I probably shouldn't use the term feminazis, but it sounds like this is a school full of them.
Yeah. Well, I've seen a lot of our quote unquote friends in the radical feminist community tweeting about this, and they're pissed. But clearly they're also sexist. We know that. The school was headed for bankruptcy. It's gonna go under if it doesn't start to attract more students, but apparently the feminists just don't give a shit. They'd rather have it go out of business. Oh, and if it does, they're gonna blame that on sexism too. Because apparently a female-only school isn't good enough for people. These people are just morons. They want special treatment. It's like if you were talking before about an all-white school. And you would have black people out there rightfully saying you should not have an all-white school. There should be, it should be open to all. But if there was an all-black school, you'd have those same black people going, nope, we need our own damn school and we want to keep the whiteys out. These people are fucking hypocrites. They all are.
Yep.
And we point it out and they ignore it. That's where this radical feminist bullshit goes in this country, where these people think, oh, well, we just deserve to be special because we were downtrodden once. Well, no, that's not what equality means. I'm sorry. Where the fuck have you been living all these years?
Yeah. It's the same argument the Christians, the Christian majority is claiming to be oppressed because of a bunch of atheists who want the country to follow its constitution, and this minority of atheists want their constitutional rights. And it's become this, we're oppressed. Here's a school that these women want to exercise their constitutional rights. Who doesn't?
Well, they don't have any constitutional rights to be sexist. I'm sorry. Find that one in the Constitution.
But what I'm getting at is that many of the state laws, they've been breaking down these barriers. Women can't be denied access to jobs, education. There's all those, I don't know the laws in Pennsylvania. What covers what there, but I am sure somewhere there's a law that you can't bar based on race, sex, or,
well, that's federal. It doesn't matter what their laws say. That's federal.
Right. But but still, there's those where you can't bar access to certain things. I'm sure there's something about education. I don't know exactly what the laws are, what they say, but I'm sure that there are laws that prevent you barring discrimination based on whatever, like I've said before. And these are women who are feminists. They're as much a part of breaking down those barriers as the rest of the country who had accepted the idea that women had equal rights. So let's tear down these barriers. It was the feminists who spoke out and the population that eventually got on board and said, you're right. This is discrimination. We need to fix this. So here we are, 2014, and we've got a school that has said, oh, but wait a minute. Now we're talking all women's school and we can't go for that. It's like, that's not what we're fighting for. It's like, well, wait a minute. You have argued. That's what you have done. You, as being a feminist, you are protesting and you have fought against discrimination. So here you are discriminating. Simple fact. And
oh yeah. Well, they don't want anybody to discriminate against them, but holy shit, they better be able to discriminate against other people.
Yeah.
It's base hypocrisy. And, it's strange that feminists can't get this through their heads, just like Christians can't get this through their heads. They think they're special and they deserve special rights and special privileges. And any place where they're ahead of other people, they want to maintain that benefit. But where they're behind anybody else, holy shit, they'll scream bloody murder until they get equal rights.
Right. Exactly. And you know what? In this case, let them holler, gnash teeth, whatever the thing is. If they did convince this, apparently it's already passed that they're going to allow men in anyhow. So
they have to, or they're going to be out of business.
Right. But, if for some reason the alumni, whatever, they'll, might bear some pressure on them and they might change their mind. And you know what? They'll close their doors and it's like, okay, girls, you're going to have to go to schools where you have to go to school with men. That's going to be a scary thought, ain't it?
Yeah.
It's a ridiculous argument. It's stupidity. It's just a stupid way of thinking. What these women are doing are almost like against what they stand, it's against what they stand for, what they fought for, what they believe in. And if they're going to fight this, it's like, this is the way they want to be. It's like, well, then why should I even why should I bother with women's rights? You don't even know the women don't even know what they want,
Well, they want to be superior. That's the thing. They don't want equal rights. They want superior rights. And the same thing is true about a lot of different groups that are out there going, we want equality, right up until they get equality. And then they go, we want superiority, we want better than you've got. We want to get back at you. We want revenge. That's really what so much of this liberal bullshit is it's revenge politics. It's not, I want to be on an equal footing with everybody else. It's, I want you to fucking kiss my ass because I used to be downtrodden and therefore you owe me something. Well, that's not the way it fucking works. I'm sorry.
Yeah. I don't even know where to you can't say anything more about this. It's just, there's just a level of stupidity here that, if this is the mindset of the feminist movement, it's like, my God, how did they last this long,
Yeah, well, I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Because I can't add anything more to it. It's definitely, these are people just don't get it. I don't think they get it. They don't want to get it. And you know what? If the alumni or whoever comes in and says, well, you can't be doing this, they'll protest or whatever. And if it gets overturned, they're going to be, shit out of luck and their school's going to close and they're going to have to find real schools to go to. I don't know.
And they'll be bitching about that too.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, why don't we go ahead and get to your last story?
Yeah. Lawyers release files on accused Joliet priest. This is Joliet, Illinois. This is out of Chicago. Lawyers on Wednesday, this would have been, April 30th. Released a deposition from long-serving bishop and letters and thousands of files from the Roman Catholic Diocese of Joliet. Documents that showed diocesan officials downplayed, dismissed, and sometimes covered up sex abuse by priests. In a 247-page deposition, Joseph L. Image, who was the Joliet bishop from 1979 to 2006, concedes under blistering questioning he sometimes allowed priests to stay on or transferred them as allegations they sexually abused children arose. And actually there'll be two stories here in it, and it's the same thing. Actually, the second article actually lists some of the priests that have been mentioned in the depositions, but this is one. I mean, I live west of Joliet, and I was kind of surprised that this is a story. I mean, just some things in the story. Now, Joliet is a town of about 150,000 people, maybe almost 200. It's not big. I mean, it's a good sized town. And, the diocese, I'm not exactly sure where the borderline is, but they cover 255,000 parishioners, which sounds almost like half the county. And, I know just from experience, Joliet is an old steel town. There was a lot of Polish Eastern Europeans who were heavily Catholic. There's very few Methodists or, I think maybe one Baptist church in Joliet itself. Most of the other denominations are kind of outside to the south, out in the farm areas. That's when you start getting into the Baptists and the, Presbyterian. I think there's maybe one Mormon church. There's one Jehovah's Witnesses, whatever they have. There's some Pentecostals, but Will County is heavily Catholic, just to give you an idea what kind of town it is. And, when I first started hearing rumblings about pedophile priests in Joliet, there was only, maybe one or two that may have been mentioned. And, here we get a whole major breakthrough of, 247 pages of deposition from the bishop. And the only name that really popped up was the Edward Stefanich, who is in jail. He pled guilty to criminal sex abuse. I think he was the only one that ever got convicted in Joliet. But now it looks like there's going to be a whole bunch more coming up, hopefully. But, here we go again.
Oh, yeah. I mean, are we honestly surprised that the Catholic Church has again been hiding pedophile priests? I mean, this is not the first mass release of documents that we've seen, and every time and in every city where they're forced to release documents, the church has clearly supported sex crimes by its priests. This is not a surprise, but they all sit around and go, oh, look, we've changed. No, you haven't.
Because I can remember these stories back in the late 80s, early 90s. I mean, I was fresh out of high school. I mean, I pretty much had stopped going to church, in the 70s. I mean, I see some of these priests were there in the 60s, so I was pretty lucky we had a straight priest for our church.
You hope, at least. You never know what he was doing with other kids.
True. But, I was somewhat involved, so who knows. I didn't go through the Catholic school system, but, I'd be curious, how many, because it was, there's definitely, I do remember, because there's a seminary not too far. It's in Will County, and there was a lot of complaints, priests actually leaving the seminary because their fellow seminarians were homosexual. And, there was a big stink over that, where, they were being, accosted by these, homosexual priests. And that's why they decided to leave, because, the church wouldn't do anything about it. There was no disciplinary action for assaulting another priest. One priest assaulting another priest in seminary. So a lot of these guys left and spilt the beans, but then again, nothing was ever done about it. And I'm not saying homosexual priests went out and started diddling boys, but there was definitely a lot of covering up. I'm covering up on all levels. Since I know this area and I've heard the stories and I've gotten the news over the years that there's a lot of things going on in the Catholic Church, even above and beyond this. It's not just children, but some of these priests have been assaulting other priests. And, I'm hoping they burn for this, really. I mean, and now seeing these numbers and actually, but I don't know if there's if there's more to this story or if there's more out there. We're talking, like I said, 247 pages. This may be only tip of the iceberg type stuff that was going on just within a small diocese in Illinois.
Oh yeah, well they've already said in that second story that there's now thousands of pages. Right. It's not just 247 anymore.
Right.
You know, and I think it's funny that they say that they wouldn't handle the situation the same way today. But honestly, at what time was it ever considered a good idea to hide sex offenders? You know, when was it ever considered acceptable to protect child rapists? If you go back to the days of this whole thing coming out in the Los Angeles Archdiocese, when they had to do the same thing, our good old buddy Roger Mahoney said that the church didn't know any better back then. How could you not know better? I mean, this is a group trying to claim moral superiority because their God wrote their morals in their hearts. What the fuck?
Yeah. Well, even that, you know, it's like, well, even just that statement, you know, we would have done things different if we would have known. You mean if you never got caught, we wouldn't be going through this? You probably wouldn't have done nothing, even to today. If there's a fresh priest coming into your church and starts doing this, you would still do nothing because you didn't know. These guys claim they didn't know. And again, it's like this, I can kind of understand, you know, you don't want to admit, you know, it's a standard operating here in this. I mean, I'm sure it's here in this, probably more here in the States, maybe around the world, that you don't admit guilt. I mean, right off the bat, you never admit guilt, because once you do that, then you're open for all sorts of trouble. You know, like when you have a car accident, you never admit guilt, because if you do admit guilt, you become responsible for paying for all the damages. And I mean, that's why GM is, with this ignition key problem, they stayed quiet, because if they said anything, they become liable for all sorts of stuff. You know, I bet you that's really what was going on at GM with this thing. So if the priests are doing this and they're getting caught, if you keep it quiet, you pay off the kids' families, you do this, you move the priest somewhere else, problem goes away, it doesn't cost you as much. As opposed to now, where now you've had to spill the beans. Yes, we messed up. They've opened themselves up to so many lawsuits, and I'm surprised, I wouldn't be surprised that there's lawyers lining up or preparing to line up at the Will County Courthouse to file suits against the Joliet Diocese for all this wrongdoing. I mean, or apparently that's what these guys are doing now, is putting together the various suits against the various priests in the archdiocese.
And they'll just declare bankruptcy and all that stuff will go away, and then they'll just keep on going.
Right.
You know, and I find it funny that the archdiocese says that suspicion is not sufficient reason to remove a priest. It's the police's job to investigate this stuff. But they're admitting that they hid these cases from the police, and they're doing everything they can to derail a police investigation. Make up your fucking mind. Yeah. Come on, guys.
You got to understand Joliet. I mean, we're talking, I don't want to blame the Polish, but it was, I mean, it was an old steel town. It's, Eastern European, primarily Polish, and they look out for each other. So even if the priest did, if it did get handed over to the cops, it could be very well that the cop says, okay, well, because they probably went to the same churches that these priests went to, and apparently this has happened in Will County anyhow, that stuff gets shoved under the rug, and, even if it got reported, nothing may ever came of it, so.
Yeah. Well, we've seen cases in the past where you get a very tight-knit religious community and the priest does something wrong. The police refuse to prosecute it. You will never find a jury that will find them guilty of anything. These people are all basically threatened by the church that if they say anything, their souls are going to hell. So, right. This is not uncommon.
Right. So it's, I can't speak to other places, but I can speak to Joliet. And Joliet is a very cliquish, and quite frankly, these old ex-steel, U.S. Steel types, cause it's, that's what Joliet was built on. And, even the retirees, they all have this singular mindset. And, they're right. They don't like taxes. They're just like anyone else. They don't like taxes. But you know what? They don't like it so much that they've literally destroyed our school districts. They've destroyed the parks, roads, everything. They don't want to pay anything. I am happy with paying taxes, to get the basic services, your police, fire, and all that. They are definitely opposed to that. They sound an awful lot like libertarians. Really, they don't want any kind of government. They don't want to pay for it. They don't want anything. And they will happily vote down school referendums. They'll shoot down, road bonds and all this kind of stuff because it's the way their mindset is. And I see it every time. Anytime a development is wanting to get started in the town I live in, there's the same guy who's opposed to it. And he's got all sorts of reasons he's opposed to it. And I'm like, dude, in the town I live in, we're short on commercial and industrial, development. Mostly it's been residential. So the schools have had to, are struggling because there is no commercial base to fill in the gaps in, the taxes. So we need more, commercial development but these people do not want commercial development. They don't want industrial development, and they go to the board meetings and they argue against it. And I'm like, don't you understand? The reason why the schools are asking the residents to pay more money is because we don't have enough commercial to make up that difference. If we had the commercial, the schools wouldn't have to ask us to raise their levies, and our taxes would stabilize. And but these guys just don't get it. That's my beef with my town. It's like, and I don't know if it's the miser, I don't know if the Polish are miserly or whatever, but it's definitely, there's this attitude of no change. They don't like anything changing. And the problem is change is a-coming. I mean, they saw it when their steel mill got shut down and all their production got shipped over to Japan. They're so clueless why that happened.
Well, just like the Catholics who are pretty clueless about why is everybody making a big deal out of our priests fucking kids. But they keep doing it.
I don't know. They just never learn. They'll never learn.
Yeah, that's the thing. They just keep making excuses, and then it keeps happening all over the place, and they keep going, oh, well, we've changed. Well, not so you'd notice, because you still have priests doing it. I mean, a lot of these cases go back into the 50s, 60s, 70s, 80s, but you still have priests getting arrested today for things they did last week, and they're still covering it up. And it's sad.
Yeah.
And they still don't understand why it's a problem.
Yeah. That's the only thing I can think of. I mean, they just don't get it. They don't understand it. And these are men of God. They're supposed to be up above and beyond, and they're pillars of the community, blah, blah, blah. Bull fucking
They're not.
shit.
They're
Bull
not.
fucking shit.
Yeah. All right. Well, we should probably get out and do our main event.
Let's do a main event.
This is the main event.
This was brought up by someone on Twitter who insisted that atheists have to produce bumper stickers attacking Islam, or they're just proving themselves to be terrified of what Muslims might do to them. I tried to engage him a little bit, but it was clear that he really wasn't speaking rationally. In any case, I thought it might make an interesting topic of discussion, since it's very commonly believed that atheists were really quick to attack Christians, but we rarely ever go after Muslims, and there are some atheists, mostly in that asinine atheist plus group, who argue that Islam is actually racist. I'm sorry, but Islam isn't a race. So, are we actually afraid to attack the Muslims, or what?
I take it this guy doesn't listen to us.
Oh, I'm sure he doesn't.
Because apparently, we've been pretty, equal opportunity, dislike of anything religious. I mean, nothing is sacred. We go after the evangelists mainly because they're the most vocal. We go after the Catholics because they're in the most trouble. But we've gone after Islam, Buddhists, I think we even got after Pastafarians in a way, in that vein. I'm not afraid. I'm not afraid to go after Islam. It's another fucked up religion I think it's a little bit more, it's a religion that's a lot more fucked up than Christianity, in the great scheme of things. And I would think that in a way that, how fucked up this religion is, I'm surprised. It's a male-dominated, religion. Women are second class, third class. I think they rank right around with, livestock. I think they're equal to livestock. It's a religion that, again, just like any religion, is opposed to education. Maybe not so much for the men, but definitely for women. Don't want people smart to start questioning what we believe. And in this show, we've pointed that out. I think we've done a pretty good job. I mean, I happily will love to find some more, Islam, related stories. I mean, I don't know if we got in the list on that, stuff that's going on in Nigeria. We certainly are not opposed, and we've not, have not shied away from going after Islam. Again, he is maybe living in a persecution complex that his Christian religion is being attacked by scientists, his belief in creationism, or his belief in intelligent design, or his maybe feeling persecuted, and maybe more his problem than ours.
Yeah. Well, I mean, the reality is the majority of atheists, especially the majority of vocal atheists online, they do tend to live in Christian-heavy countries where Islam isn't very prevalent. So it's only natural that we concentrate more on Christianity than on Islam. Further, the guy on Twitter insisted that he insisted that I personally make a Darwin fish specifically for Islam. But let's be honest, I mean, doesn't the regular Darwin fish work just as well against the Muslims as it does against the Christians? I mean, a lot of modern Muslims are very accepting of creationism, or at least theistic evolution, than they are of pure science. So a Darwin fish says as much against Islam as it does against Christianity, just as it stands right now. We don't have to make a specialized Darwin fish.
Yeah. Plus, why would even need a Darwin fish? Darwin's right,
Yeah.
And there's no reason to, I mean, what do you want to get a Muhammad with, legs hanging off the bottom of it?
I don't know. That would be kind of cool.
Yeah.
And clearly, I think we can point to a lot of vocal atheists who do speak out against, Islam. Pat Condell, for instance, he puts many, many, many videos up on YouTube detailing the stupidity of Islam. I'm sure not silent about it. The Religious Horror Show currently has 21 stories on the horrors of Islam. That's the second highest count among religions. I looked through YouTube, and there's tons of people out there like Jacqueline Glenn, the Thoughtful Atheist, the Amazing Atheist, Thunderfoot, and more. All of them make constant videos about the stupidity of Islam. So where this guy comes off and says that atheists are afraid to talk about Islam, well, hell, he hasn't paid any damn attention to atheists, has he?
Yeah. I mean, that's definitely it. I mean, like I said, I mean, we've done plenty of stories on Islam and the various denominations within it, so it's not hands off. Again, here in the United States, you're right. The predominant religion is a Christian religion. We've gone after some of the, the more radical Jews, I forget some of those sects that are where they would, suck the blood out of the penis of a circumcised baby.
Yeah, it's Jews.
Yeah.
Orthodox Jews.
Orthodox. Okay. So, and you're right. Islam's not a very high, profile here in this country, and probably for various reasons, but, I don't think anybody's really shied away from it. And I think even generally, when you talk about, the non-belief in God, I think that cuts across all cloths of the whole religious world. I mean, if you believe in some mythical God or, some magical being, we've gone after it either directly or at least just attacking the base concepts,
Yeah, I mean, you probably really can't find a religion out there that atheists ignore, even if those atheists rarely, if ever, directly encounter them. I mean, I'm an equal opportunity critic. I go after Buddhism, Hinduism, witchcraft, pagan religions, Judaism. Shit, if somebody still believed in Thor or Odin, I'd go after them too. I'm not afraid of Muslim terrorists out to kill me because I mock their stupid beliefs.
Actually, I think we did go after that. Ragnarok, or what's the end of, the Norse.
Yeah.
We have done a story about that. So we've done it all, man.
We do it all, and we're not afraid of these people. I don't know where they get this really ridiculous idea that we're afraid of these people, okay? Once more, for good measure, fuck Islam and your moronic prophet. Fuck the people who think they get to control the free speech of others through physical threat. If I want to draw your stupid fucking prophet, I'm going to, and if that hurts your goddamn feelings, too fucking bad. I'm gonna say, that what your religion believes is stupid, and that's my right. And you can disagree. You can challenge me to a debate, but that's about as far as you get to go. If you want to do more against anyone, if you want to physically threaten people because they make you feel bad about the stupid shit you believe, fuck you. And that goes for every goddamn religion out there. I'm not afraid of any of you. Yeah. And I'm really getting sick and tired of the stupid, well, you can't criticize Islam because you're being racist. Where the fuck did you get that stupid shit? Do you people not understand what a race is? I mean, it's more of the stupid atheism plus crap. What's wrong with them?
I wish
Besides everything,
Yeah. I'm trying to remember if I'm trying to figure out if there is Judaism might be, but there's a lot of people who practice Judaism that isn't Jewish. There probably isn't really a no true Scotsman and no true Jew. I don't know if that's a correct statement. I'm probably wrong on that, but it's about the closest I think we can get to, a race and a religion matching up. Because the rest of it, our prisons are full of, Muslims. Most of them have converted from other religions. It's kind of a hip thing to do in prison, I guess, nowadays, to mess with a man. Certainly people have converted for various reasons. They either because they're getting married or just wanted to got into the religion for whatever reasons and become Muslim, men and women. Calling it racist, this is just, again, showing ignorance of what you don't understand who these people are and what they believe.
Well, yeah, because there are non-Middle Eastern people who are Muslims. There are white people. There are lots of black people, actually. There are Hispanics. There are Asians. All these people, they join together under a common banner of Islam. We don't argue against Islam on the basis of the skin color of its members. We argue against Islam because it's fucking stupid.
It's a religion. It's believe in a fantasy world and the harm it does to people who follow its tenets to the nth degree. That's really why we're vocal about our anti-theism. We're not picking on them because they believe, but they believe in and they've gone to such levels of where they harm other people. They harm themselves. They harm, people within their group because they don't follow they show too much elbow. Okay. That means, you get stoned. You get raped. You get stoned. These are the fucked up, aspects of these religions. And, these religions, if the Taliban wasn't hauling kids off, killing them for going to school, if the Muslims weren't stoning women because they were raped.
If Boko Haram wasn't kidnapping Nigerian women.
Right. We might actually not have much of a show. We might have a happier show, and we could probably have a fairly sensible debate on the validity of religion, and perhaps even without that extra, the violence and the gore that seems to go along with religion. Maybe religion would have went away a long time ago. Or it may
we can only hope.
Right. Or it could have stuck around and it wouldn't be, it would almost be, it'd be kind of not worth arguing over. I know, I'll only speak for myself, is that when these religions, torture, kill their own people or people who don't believe in their religion, when I was hearing that the Taliban and Islam in general have destroyed world treasures. They were going out and destroying ancient sites, historic ancient sites, because they glorify the wrong religion. And it's like, these are people who are trying to wipe out everything. I don't know if there's a step above genocide in this case, because not only are you erasing the people, you're erasing their past. You're erasing their, the roots, where they came from. You're erasing every aspect of this civilization. And it sounds to me like it's a step above, one more step beyond genocide. And this is stuff that it's wrong. I think it's immoral. It is, it's just these general terrible things these people are doing just because their religion says they have to do it. And it's why I am, and I'm sure we are opposed to these religions, and that's why we put on a show and point this stuff out, and hopefully people will listen and say, enough is enough.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I recently saw, and I've seen things like this before, but they have like a comparison between like Iran and Pakistan and Saudi Arabia in like the 1970s and how it is today. And it used to be really nice there.
Yeah.
And now it's just a bunch of women sitting around in burqas and, you know, all of these historic sites, and not just historic sites, but all of these sites that used to be really nice and built up and modern and are now blasted into the sand. And that's fucking Islam. I'm sorry. I can't defend these people. I can't defend their beliefs. I can't defend their practices, and I can't defend what they've done. And if I can find that, I'm going to go ahead and throw it up in the show notes. But it's just sad to see how backward these people have become as these religions have become more pronounced in these countries. It used to be that, yeah, they were theoretically Muslims. But now they're like militant, fundamentalist, fucktard Muslims who have basically shot themselves in the foot, destroyed their own social and cultural economic growth, and they think that's a fucking wonderful thing. It's not. You people should be ashamed of yourselves.
Well, you can go even further back. I mean, it was the Arab world that was the center of science. I mean, this was where a lot of the science the West has and has used, you know, had originated in the Middle East. Islam was a major scientific powerhouse. All of a sudden, that all switched, and they started losing that. They gave up. Something about, and I think there's actually a Skeptoid episode. I don't know what number it was. And they talk about that there's a guy came along and says, well, you know, it was an imam who decided that the science was bad. We got to stop that. All the advances that Islam had made stopped at that point, and it just slipped into what we see today. I remember from, what's that show, Day the Universe Changed, that James Burke, and, where the Spanish had, I think it was the Moors had just crossed into southern Spain, and they had kind of settled. And, there was I think it was the Inquisition going on, but they left these guys alone because they had clean water, they had food, they had everything that the Spanish needed, even dentists, where they actually had, you know, where you can get real dentistry. I mean, with, anesthetic and the whole works from the Moors. So they left them alone because they wanted access to that. I mean, they were happily trying to convert the rest of Spain and trying to, the Inquisition across Europe, trying to convert the Jews and any Muslims or whatever to Christianity, but they left the Moors alone because they got a nice deal. And, there was a point where that all stopped, and, all that technology, all that knowledge vanished, found its way into monastery libraries, and it took 100 years to recover it. And eventually the West picked up where where Saudi Arabia left off.
Exactly. But,
it's,
what do you want to do with these people who want to shoot themselves in the foot?
Hand them a bigger gun.
Yeah. Well, I wish. I wish they'd shoot a little higher, but
Yep.
I don't know. Do we have a lot left to do on this one, or can we call it a week?
I say we can call it a week. I mean, it's just, anybody who first of all, anyone thinks that an atheist is avoiding Islam because, for whatever reason, go back to the internet, search it out. You'll find plenty of stuff out there. I know this show, we're equal opportunity religion haters, no holds barred, nothing sacred.
Yep.
And, do your research.
Oh, it's too hard to actually do research. These people would just rather make unjustified claims because, hell, they don't have to actually do any work.
Yeah. Oh, I guess you have to be a troll. You don't have to. I don't know if this guy was a troll, but he probably was. He was probably just trying to get a rise out of somebody.
Yeah, well, he was an idiot, and we've just proven it. So let's go ahead and finish up for the week.
Okay.
Wow, that went fast, didn't it? We're always looking for good people to come on the show and debate various subjects intelligently and rationally. I've put out the call a couple of times and haven't gotten any response. Are we supposed to believe that nobody can defend their religious or political beliefs against two guys on a podcast? Seriously? I'd love to get a Christian or a Muslim on here to argue in favor of their faith. I'd love to get a liberal or libertarian on here to defend their political positions. Any takers? If so, head on over to our website and click on the So You Want to Be a Guest tab at the top, and you can email us and let us know that you'd like to be on. Remember, we're available on Facebook, Google+, and Twitter. Plus, you can listen to the show on iTunes and Stitcher Radio. Please give us a good rating if you do. It helps people find us. And until next week, remember that the rational person continually re-examines their own positions. It'll give you something to think about until our next episode. Take care, everybody.
Good night.
You've been listening to the Bitchspot Report Podcast with your hosts, Cephas and Mike. You can follow us on Twitter respectively at Bitchspot1 or at JDRipper1962. Please visit our website at report.jdragononline.com. We're on Facebook at facebook.com/The Bitchspot Report. We're also on Google+, iTunes, and YouTube. Those links are on our website. We'd love to hear from you. You can reach us via email at report@jdragononline.com. Comments, ideas, and suggestions are always welcome. We'll be back next week with another fun and fact-filled episode. Please tune in again.